People don't take warnings seriously until it's too late. They hear the whispers, feel the tension in the air, notice how things don't add up, but they keep pretending everything's fine. That's how it always goes. They laugh it off, scroll past it, call it paranoia. Because believing means changing, and no one likes that. But something's coming, and deep down, everyone feels it. That strange heaviness in your chest, that unease you can't explain. It's not random. It's a message. And by the time most people realize it, the moment to act is already gone. This warning isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you. Because when the clock hits Wednesday morning, pretending won't save anyone anymore. Warnings ignored become lessons learned too late. That's the thing about people. They never listen when it matters. They hear what they want, not what they need. They think the warning is just noise. Another voice in the crowd. Another story that doesn't apply to them. They tell themselves they're different, that somehow they'll escape the consequences everyone else faces. But time always proves otherwise. The signs were there, the words were spoken, the feeling was clear. They just didn't listen. Not because they couldn't, but because they didn't want to. Because listening means admitting that danger is real, and that makes them uncomfortable. You ever notice how people always understand everything's after it's over? When the damage is done, when the bridges are gone, when the silence finally screams. That's when they say, "I should have known," or "I saw the signs." Of course they did. Everyone sees the signs. They just pretend not to. Because pretending gives them permission to keep doing nothing. It's easier to call it coincidence than to face the truth. Because the truth demands action, and action demands courage. And courage is rare these days. Warnings aren't meant to comfort you. They're meant to disturb you. They're supposed to shake you, make you uncomfortable, make you stop. But instead, people get offended. They say, "Don't be so negative." They think a warning is an attack. They want reassurance, not reality. So they silence the messenger, block out the noise, convince themselves that everything's fine. But the world doesn't care about your comfort. It gives you warnings out of mercy. Ignore them, and mercy turns into lesson. People always think they'll get another chance. Another signal, another clue, another reminder. But warnings don't repeat forever. They fade. They get quieter each time you ignore them, until one day, there's only silence, and the silence becomes the consequence. That's when you realize the warning wasn't a threat. It was protection. It wasn't trying to scare you. It was trying to save you. But you were too busy laughing, too distracted, too numb to hear it. You can always tell who ignored their warnings. You see it in their eyes. They carry that quiet regret, that look that says they knew better but didn't act. They say it's bad luck, bad timing, unfair circumstances. But deep down, they know it wasn't fate, it was choice. They were told, they were shown, they were warned, and they brushed it off. That's the price of pride. Thinking you'll have time to fix it later, not realizing that later doesn't always come. The universe doesn't scream forever. It whispers first. It gives you small things. A gut feeling, a strange coincidence, a conversation that hits too close to home. You feel it in your bones, but you rationalize it away. You say it's nothing, just your imagination. But that's how every downfall begins, with a warning you explained away. And when the real storm hits, you look back at all the moments you were told and wish you'd taken them seriously. People love the idea of signs, but they only accept the ones that make them feel good. The ones that confirm what they already believe. They call that faith. But real faith listens even when the message hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because the truth doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It comes wrapped in urgency. It doesn't beg to be believed. It just stands there, waiting for you to decide whether you're brave enough to accept it. Warnings don't come from nowhere. They come from experience, from intuition, from the rhythm of life itself. Everything has a pattern. The world speaks in repetition. You keep facing the same kind of pain, the same kind of loss, the same kind of disappointment, because you never learned what the warning was trying to teach you. It's not a curse, it's a cycle. A cycle you could have broken if you'd only paid attention the first time. You ever realize how every regret starts with a warning? Every broken relationship, every lost opportunity, every failure had one. A moment, a feeling, a voice that said, "Stop." And you didn't. Because you thought you were in control. You thought you could handle it. But control is a lie. Life always gives you a fair chance. It just doesn't give you endless ones. There's something cruel about hindsight. It turns clarity into punishment. You see everything clearly, but too late to change it. That's what ignored warnings do. They turn into memories that haunt you. You replay them. You analyze them. You wish you could go back. But the past doesn't take apologies. It only takes lessons. And by then, the lesson has already drawn blood. Most people don't realize how fragile warnings are. They expire. They aren't meant to stay forever. They're meant to wake you. And if you don't wake up, life moves on without you. Not out of anger, but out of order. The world keeps spinning whether you're ready or not. And if you keep ignoring the alarms, don't be surprised when the fire finally reaches your door. Because every ignored warning becomes a lesson. And every lesson, eventually, demands payment. Denial is comfort dressed as blindness. People love to lie to themselves. It's their favorite form of survival. They call it optimism, patience, faith. But it's really denial wearing a nice outfit. They see the cracks forming, the signs showing, the truth revealing itself. And still, they look away. They convince themselves everything's fine, even when it's clearly burning. Because the truth is heavy, and facing it means doing something about it. It means admitting that the dream, the plan, the person, the life they've built might not be what they thought it was. And people would rather go blind than open their eyes to that kind of pain. Denial is easy. It's soft. It's quiet. It lets you sleep at night. It doesn't ask questions, doesn't demand change. It wraps you up in the illusion that everything's okay, that maybe the problem will solve itself, that maybe you just need a little more time. But it never does, and time doesn't heal what you refuse to see. It just lets the damage grow roots, spreading until the truth is buried under layers of excuses. That's what denial does. It turns discomfort into decay. You ever notice how people always see clearly when it's too late? They say things like, "I should have seen it coming," or "I didn't want to believe it." Of course they didn't. Believing means breaking the illusion, and illusions are safe. They protect you from reality for a while, until reality decides it's done being ignored. Then it hits harder than it ever needed to. Because the truth doesn't disappear when you look away. It waits. Patiently. And when it returns, it doesn't knock. It breaks the door. Denial is a strange kind of addiction. You start small, ignore one red flag, justify one lie, overlook one feeling, and it feels good, harmless even. You convince yourself you're being strong, that you're giving things a chance, that you're just keeping peace. But peace built on lies isn't peace. It's delay. The more you ignore, the more the truth grows in the shadows, waiting for its turn to explode. And when it does, it doesn't just destroy the lie, it destroys the liar. People are afraid of pain, but they don't realize denial makes it worse. It's like ignoring a wound and calling it healing. You can cover it. You can distract yourself. You can smile through it. But rot doesn't stop because you pretend it isn't there. It spreads, slowly, silently, until one day the damage is too deep to fix. That's how denial works. It doesn't protect you. It poisons you. You can always tell who's living in denial. They talk too loud about how fine they are. They laugh a little too hard. They defend the very thing that's destroying them. Because if they stop defending it, they'll have to face what they've been running from. Denial isn't ignorance. It's choice. It's looking straight at the truth and saying, "Not now." But "not now" turns into never, and never turns into regret. People think truth hurts, but it's denial that breaks you. Truth cuts once. Denial cuts every day you keep pretending. It eats away at your confidence, your clarity, your peace. You start second, guessing yourself, distrusting your instincts, rewriting your own memories just to keep the lie alive. You forget who you are because denial demands constant performance. You're always acting like everything's okay, even when it's not. And the longer you play the role, the more you lose yourself in it. Denial is a thief. It steals your time, your growth, your freedom. It convinces you to stay in places you've outgrown, with people who don't care, in situations that are already ending. You stay because you hope it'll change, because you think pretending makes it better. But pretending doesn't change reality. It just delays the inevitable. You end up stuck in a story that's already over, reciting lines from a script no one believes anymore. You ever see how fast people wake up when they lose everything? That's when denial finally cracks. When the comfort collapses, when there's nothing left to hide behind. Suddenly, they see clearly. They realize the truth was always there, waiting, patient, merciless. That's the price of blindness. You don't get to choose when your eyes open. You only get to face what you refuse to see. And it's always uglier by then, always harder to fix. Because denial doesn't protect you from pain, it multiplies it. Denial is fear in disguise. Fear of change, fear of loss, fear of truth. But truth doesn't destroy, it cleanses. It hurts, yes, but it frees you. Denial traps you. It keeps you stuck in moments that are long gone, keeps you loyal to illusions that don't love you back. You tell yourself you're staying strong, but really, you're standing still. You call it faith, but it's fear with better branding. The world doesn't punish denial, it exposes it. Slowly, then all at once. It pulls the rug from under your lies, strips away your excuses, and leaves you standing face to face with what you refuse to see. That's when you realize blindness was never peace. It was delay, and comfort built on lies always ends in collapse. Because denial doesn't make reality go away. It just makes sure it hits you harder when it finally arrives. The truth always knocks before it breaks in. It's polite like that, gives you a fair chance. You hear it in the back of your mind, feel it in your chest, see it in the little things that don't make sense. The signs are always there, but people don't answer. They pretend not to hear, hoping the knocking will stop. They tell themselves it's nothing, that they're overthinking, that maybe they just need rest. But truth doesn't leave when you ignore it. It gets louder. And when you keep pretending not to hear, it stops knocking altogether. That's when it kicks the door down. Truth never arrives quietly. It's patient, but not soft. It gives warnings before it strikes, whispers before it roars. It gives you time to prepare, to change, to accept. But no one ever does. Everyone wants truth on their own terms. They want it when it suits them, when they're ready, when it doesn't hurt. But truth doesn't care about timing. It shows up when it must, not when you want it to. It doesn't wait for your comfort. It waits for your honesty. You ever notice how the truth doesn't surprise anyone? When it finally reveals itself, people always say, "I knew it." Of course they did. Deep down, they always knew. Everyone does. Because truth isn't hidden, it's just inconvenient. And people don't like inconvenience. They'd rather live in a lie that feels warm than face a truth that burns. They confuse comfort with peace. But peace without truth isn't peace. It's anesthesia. And anesthesia wears off. The truth always gives you a chance to listen. It starts small. Maybe it's a thought that won't go away. A feeling that something's off. A moment that catches your attention. But you brush it aside. Tell yourself you're fine. Tell yourself it's nothing. The problem is, the truth doesn't disappear just because you dismiss it. It waits. It watches. And when it finally comes back, it doesn't knock. It crashes through, dragging everything you built on lies right down with it. People think they can outsmart truth. They manipulate it, twist it, bury it, hoping it'll stay quiet. But truth isn't fragile. It's relentless. It doesn't die when you hide it. It grows. Every lie you stack on top of it just makes the explosion bigger when it finally breaks through. Because truth doesn't lose. It waits for its moment. And when it arrives, it doesn't care about your excuses, your reasons, or your intentions. It just wants to be seen. You can tell when someone's been living too far from the truth. They're tired in a way sleep can't fix. They talk fast, laugh loud, avoid silence. Because silence is dangerous. It's where the knocking starts again. The truth doesn't chase with anger. It chases with persistence. It waits until you're alone, until you can't distract yourself anymore, until you have no choice but to listen. And when you finally do, it's not gentle. It shows you everything you didn't want to see, all at once. The cruel thing about truth is how it always gives you a chance to do the right thing before it forces you to. You get that moment, that split second when you could change course. Admit what you know. Act before it's too late. But people let it pass. They hope maybe the truth will forget them. Maybe it'll fade. But truth has a perfect memory. It remembers every time you turned away, every moment you lied to yourself. And when it finally breaks in, it doesn't just expose the lie, it exposes you. People say they want honesty, but what they really want is reassurance. They don't want the truth. They want a version of it that doesn't hurt. But truth doesn't do edits. It doesn't bend, doesn't soften, doesn't flatter. It just stands there, unshaken, waiting for you to stop pretending. And the longer you avoid it, the more it costs you. Because every moment spent lying is a debt you'll eventually have to pay, with interest. The truth doesn't punish. It reveals. It doesn't come to destroy. It comes to reset. But by the time it arrives, people have built entire lives around avoiding it. Jobs, relationships, identities, all crafted to stay comfortable in the lie. So when truth finally kicks the door in, it looks like chaos. But that chaos isn't destruction. It's correction. It's life ripping away everything that wasn't real. Everything you tried to hold together with denial and fear. You ever watch how people react when the truth finally hits them? Some get angry, some cry, some go quiet. But they all say the same thing: I should have known. The irony is, they did. They just didn't want to. Because knowing means responsibility. And responsibility means change. But truth doesn't care how long you avoided it. It doesn't care how good your reasons were. It only cares about alignment. And it always gets what it came for. The truth always knocks before it breaks in, because it wants to give you mercy first. It gives you time to face it willingly, to open the door yourself, to deal with it before it destroys you. But people mistake mercy for weakness. They think the knocking will go on forever. So they wait, they stall, they keep living their illusion. Until one day the sound changes. It's not a knock anymore, it's a crash. And by then, it's not a warning, it's a reckoning. Fear isn't the enemy, silence is. Fear tells you something's wrong. Something's moving, something needs to change. It's a signal, not a curse. It wakes you up when the world wants you asleep. But silence is a killer dressed in peace. It doesn't shout, it doesn't fight, it waits. It makes you comfortable in your cage. It tells you, don't say it, don't move. Don't make a scene. And before you know it, you've swallowed your voice, buried your truth, and called it strength. People think being fearless makes them powerful. No. The real power comes from facing fear and still speaking, still moving, still choosing truth even when your voice shakes. Fear's not the problem. It's proof you're alive. It means you care. You feel you still have something worth fighting for. But silence. Silence means you've given up the fight before it even started. It means the world broke you so quietly, you didn't even notice. Silence pretends to be your friend. It whispers that keeping quiet will keep you safe, that if you just stay calm, stay low, stay invisible, you'll avoid the pain. But that's the trick. It doesn't protect you. It just delays the explosion, because everything you bury under silence keeps growing. The anger, the truth, the pain, it all festers in the dark until it becomes something you can't control anymore. And when it finally comes out, it doesn't come out soft. It comes out like fire. Fear at least gives you motion. It shakes you. It reminds you that you still have a choice. But silence as silence takes that away. It convinces you the fight isn't worth it, that your words don't matter, that no one would listen anyway. So you stay quiet, play along, pretend. But deep down you can feel it, that slow suffocation, that sense that something inside you is dying every time you don't speak when you should, every time you smile when you want to scream. People think silence keeps the peace. It doesn't. It just buries the war underground. It hides the wounds instead of healing them. You can't build peace on top of silence. It cracks eventually. Because truth doesn't die in silence. It rots. It decays into resentment, into guilt, into self-doubt. And once that poison spreads far enough, you start to believe you deserved the quiet, that you were never meant to be heard in the first place. That's how silence wins. It makes you doubt your own voice. You ever notice how loud silence can get? When you've kept too much inside, when you've stayed quiet for too long, it starts echoing in your head. Every unsaid word, every swallowed truth, every moment you looked away. They don't disappear. They replay over and over like a punishment. And the more you ignore it, the louder it gets. That's the thing about silence. It doesn't stay quiet forever. It waits until you're alone, until your guard is down, and then it starts to scream. The world rewards silence. It calls it maturity, composure, professionalism. They tell you to hold your tongue, smile, stay polite, don't make trouble. But what they really mean is, don't challenge the system. They want you silent because silence keeps things easy for them. But it eats you alive from the inside. It kills your fire, your curiosity, your truth. They call it control, but it's really obedience. And obedience isn't peace, it's surrender. Fear, on the other hand, can be transformed. You can take that trembling energy and turn it into something real. Action, art, rebellion, truth. Fear gives you edges. Silence smooths you into nothing. Fear says, move. Silence says, wait. Fear might make you fall, but silence makes you disappear. And disappearing slowly, quietly, pretending it's peace, that's the cruelest way to die. Some people wear silence like armor. They think if they stay quiet, they can't get hurt. But silence doesn't protect you. It isolates you. It makes you watch life happen from behind glass. You see everything but can't touch it. You feel everything but can't express it. You exist, but you don't live. Because living requires sound. It requires movement, conflict, expression. Silence takes that away. It turns you into a ghost while you're still breathing. The world breaks the loud ones first, but it forgets the silent ones faster. You think you're keeping the peace, but really, you're fading. And one day, you'll look in the mirror and realize you don't recognize the person staring back. That's what silence does. It erases you piece by piece. You stop sharing your thoughts, your pain, your truth, and eventually, you stop having any at all. Because when you silence your voice long enough, your soul forgets how to speak. Fear is human. Fear means you care. Fear means there's something to lose. But silence means you've already lost it. The ones who change things aren't the ones without fear. They're the ones who feel it and still make noise. They still shout, still stand, still burn for something real. Because silence is the graveyard where dreams go to die, and fear is the last breath before you rise again. Every sign comes with a deadline. Nothing happens without warning. The world doesn't just collapse out of nowhere. It whispers first. It sends little signals, quiet hints, strange coincidences that only make sense when it's too late. But people never pay attention. They call it chance, luck, mood, timing. They keep walking past the signs like blind tourists in their own lives, thinking the universe will send a clearer message next time. But it won't. It doesn't repeat itself forever. Every warning has an expiration date. Every opportunity has a timer ticking in the background, even if you pretend not to hear it. People like to believe they'll have more time. I'll fix it later. I'll change when things calm down. I'll listen when I'm ready. That's the story everyone tells themselves. But time doesn't wait for your readiness. It doesn't care if you're tired, scared, or distracted. It keeps moving, taking your chances with it. The signs don't stop because you're busy. They fade, and when they fade, they don't come back. You can't rewind a warning. You can't bargain with a deadline that's already passed. The funny part: the signs are never hidden. They're right there in your face. The tension you feel around certain people. The gut instinct you ignore. The thing that doesn't sit right, but you pretend it's fine. That's not coincidence. That's clarity knocking on your door. But humans are masters of pretending. They convince themselves that what they feel isn't real, that the noise inside them is just overthinking, until the moment it isn't, until everything they brushed aside becomes the reason they break. Every sign starts small, a shift in energy, a repeated pattern, a moment that doesn't feel right. It's subtle, almost gentle, as if life is testing whether you're paying attention. But if you're not, it gets louder. The signs start stacking, louder and clearer, until they turn into chaos. That's the last stage, the deadline. when the whispers become warnings and the warnings become consequences. By then, it's not a lesson anymore. It's a result. The universe doesn't repeat itself forever. It speaks once, twice, maybe 3 times, and if you still refuse to listen, it stops asking. It starts showing. You ever notice how hindsight feels like a cruel joke? After everything falls apart, suddenly it all makes sense. You start connecting the dots you ignored. The uneasy feeling, the missed opportunity, the strange coincidence. You see it all clearly, but from the wrong side of time. That's the price of ignoring signs. You only get clarity after you can't use it anymore. The truth was always there, but you needed the crash to recognize it. People think signs are dramatic, visions, miracles, divine intervention. But most of the time, they're quiet. They show up as conversations you can't forget, dreams that repeat, moments that feel too precise to be random. But we're too busy scrolling, rushing, complaining, distracting ourselves. The signs are speaking, but we drown them out with noise. Because listening means changing, and changing means losing control. So we delay, we stall, and the deadline gets closer. There's a clock behind every choice. You can't see it, but you can feel it. That pressure in your chest, when you know it's now or never. That unease when you keep delaying what you know you need to do. That's time warning you that the window's closing. But most people wait until the window slams shut to realize it was open all along. They call it bad luck, but it's not luck, it's neglect. They ignored the signs and mistook silence for safety. The signs never lie. They don't flatter you. They don't argue. They don't care about your excuses. They just show up over and over until the deadline arrives. And when it does, it's not a shock, it's justice. You get what the signs tried to save you from. You face the thing you were warned about. That's not cruelty, it's balance. The universe doesn't punish you for not listening. It simply hands you the consequence you chose by staying blind. You can feel the difference between intuition and coincidence if you're honest with yourself. Deep down, you always know. The problem is, most people are too afraid to trust their own knowing. They wait for proof. They wait for certainty. But by the time proof arrives, the deadline's already passed. The signs were the proof. You just didn't want to believe them. Because belief demands action. And action demands risk. So you wait, hoping for another signal, but all that comes next is silence. Every sign comes with a deadline, because growth requires urgency. You're not meant to wait forever. You're meant to move. The signs aren't there to confuse you. They're there to test your courage. They ask, will you act before you're forced to? Most people don't. They wait for the world to collapse before they change. They ignore the whispers until life screams. But the scream isn't a punishment. It's the sound of missed chances coming back to collect. The cruelest thing about deadlines is how quiet they are when they end. There's no explosion, no big finale, just stillness. A moment when you realize the door's closed, and you didn't walk through it. The thing that was once waiting for you is gone. Not because it hated you, but because it had to move on. That's how time works. It doesn't hate. It just doesn't wait. And every sign, every warning, every whisper, it was never trying to scare you. It was trying to save you before the clock ran out.